with those who are known to have been exposed. And TransLink has unveiled a new plan aimed at easing overcrowding and expanding service across Metro Vancouver. But the plan comes with a catch. It includes fare hikes and higher property taxes. But one transit advocate says there are things in the plan to celebrate.
There's so much to love in this plan that it really feels like a big step forward in the context of financial constraint at the cities and at the province. So we're looking at like a whole new route on 68th Avenue in Surrey and Newton, one of the places that really needs it.
And the BC government is offering $312 million for the plan. And according to TransLink, the deal will keep them fiscally sustainable until the end of 2027. And that's it for me. I am Jessica Chung. You are watching CBC News BC. Stay here for more continuous local coverage and much more, because BC Today is up next, so don't go anywhere.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Canadians have a lot to think about this federal election. Tariffs, costs, jobs, the cost of living. But what about the environment? Hundreds of mayors from across the country are calling on leaders for action to help deal with environmental disasters. Will the environment and climate change impact who you vote for? And in our second half, it is a Minter Friday. Master Gardener Brian Minter will be here to answer your calls and emails as we swing more into spring. I'm Dan Burritt, in for Michelle Elliott. Welcome to a Friday edition of BC Today. Thank you for joining us on radio, TV, and on our live stream. You can call us now on our top story. Will the environment and climate change impact who you vote for this federal election? If so, why? If not, why not? What steps do you want parties and leaders to take to address concerns about climate change? Where does it rank in terms of your priorities? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950 or hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free if you're driving. Or email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. So, as we've said, While the trade war and the economy have taken center stage this election, the climate crisis is a top issue for many younger Canadian voters. We heard from several of them who say climate issues have taken a back seat in campaign policies as well as pledges. As the CBC's Kwabena Oduro tells us, experts say ignoring the environment undermines young voters and their future.
Young people and first-time voters are trying to figure out which party aligns with their values. But there's one issue they say isn't getting the attention it deserves.
The environment.
Climate change.
The environment and our impact on it.
Given all the rumblings south of the border, the economy has dominated leader stump speeches and policy proposals. But they run the risk of leaving young voters behind if the climate crisis doesn't seem to be a priority.
Housing and climate. Those are two chronic problems that will disproportionately, that already and will continue to disproportionately affect younger people. What those two kind of chronic crises have the capacity to do is to dramatically undermine younger people's faith in the social contract going forward.
In 2019, a youth-driven campaign to force leaders into addressing climate change captured the attention and imagination of an entire generation. And then the pandemic, inflation, political unrest, there's been a lot going on. Seeing, or rather not seeing, the role that climate has played in this campaign has some worried that we are at risk of going backwards.
Having some more decent climate policy and having some more ambitious policies towards green initiatives will be better for the Canadian economy, for the average Canadian, and for fighting inflation. We need to remind them how important environmental crisis is because there's no economy on a dying planet.
In Quebec, we are seeing the real consequences of climate change in the form of flash floods, ice storms, and wildfires. Some younger and first-time voters say they are worried about their future.
A party's environmental framework demonstrates how much they care about my future, our future.
While identity and the economy are important for the current political moment, people told me they feel ignored.
I'm aware that other problems are urgent at the moment and they've been focused on that, and I understand. But how am I going to vote for someone that doesn't have concrete plans of something that's important to me?
I'm someone who's voted for the NDP in the past. I haven't heard much regarding the climate crisis coming out of the NDP at this point in time, so I'm considering other options for sure. Because of how important this is.
So with time ticking away at the campaign clock, the parties have some catching up to do to convince many young voters to turn up and turn out on some of the issues that matter to them the most.
The CBC's Kwabena Oduro reporting from Montreal. And time is ticking with just over 2 weeks left in the shortest federal election campaign we've ever had. We're seeing the trade war and the economy dominate the platforms as we're presented by ongoing tariff threats by U.S. President Donald Trump day by day. So where does that leave the environment and climate change? Will it, influence your vote? And what climate policies would you like to see from the major federal parties? Give us a call now, 1-800-825-5950. Our number in Metro Vancouver, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone, and email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining us today are two municipal politicians calling on the federal leaders to take climate action in Canada seriously leading up to the vote. Spencer Coyne is the mayor of Princeton, and David Miller is the managing director of the C40 Centre for City Climate Policy and the Economy, and the former mayor of Toronto. Among almost 130 politicians to write this open letter to the federal party leaders. Both of you, we appreciate your time. I want to start, Spencer, with you, if I can, Mayor. Tell me about this letter you and other local leaders across Canada wrote to the 5 federal party leaders. Why'd you do it?
Yeah, we kind of felt we had to. Climate hasn't been a top priority in this election, and as everybody in British Columbia knows, climate is front and center and just about everything we do now since, fires, floods, you name it. It's been happening to us. So when I was approached to join in with this, I couldn't say no.
And Mayor, if I can ask, remind us what happened to your community in 2021. For those of us who are here in BC, many of us will remember the devastation.
Yeah, 2021 was probably one of the most devastating days in Princeton's history. We were one of the 3 main communities that were devastated in the atmospheric river that came through, and we're still recovering from that.
David Miller, you also signed this letter. What compelled you to write or put your John Hancock to the 5 federal leaders?
First of all, Dan, thanks very much for paying attention to this issue and having us on. Climate's an existential threat in Canada and around the world. We've seen the impact on Princeton, Lytton burning down in literally 15 minutes, Jasper last year. These events cause huge damages, not just to our towns and cities, but to the people who live there, often destroying their biggest purchase in their life, their home. We must act on climate. Canada is one of the world's biggest per person contributors to the problem. And I think we have a moral obligation to act. And for me, the importance of the letter is there are things the federal government can do today that are economically and technically feasible to massively lower our reliance on fossil fuels. And I think it's important to speak up about those things, particularly in this election, because there's a lot of discussion about addressing our economic challenges and the tariff challenges by doing things like expanding the use of fossil fuels. What we should be talking about is how we build a made in Canada economy that relies on clean energy, clean transportation, buildings that require little energy to heat and cool, and so forth, clean electricity, which we could be a clean energy superpower if we went about it the right way. So it's very important to have this conversation now in the context of the election, which might decide the economic future of this country for a very long time.
Let's go to David in Nanaimo. David, will the environment and climate change influence who you vote for?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And why is that?
Well, I mean, for many reasons. I'm a dad. I have a 9-year-old kid who I think about every day, and it breaks my heart to think that she's going to grow up in a world with an unsafe climate, with more fires, more smoke, and a government that's really not taking it seriously.
What would you like to hear from the leaders in terms of solutions? What are you looking for?
Yeah, well, we're at an incredible crossroads where we can really build out an amazing renewable energy sector. Building the tar sands and getting the oil to the coast involved billions of dollars and decades of innovation, Canadian ingenuity. It was a major enterprise, and that's the kind of major enterprise we need and the major funding we need to really build out the renewable future. We need to shift. We've gone down the dirty oil and gas path for so long, and the consequences are in our face and in our communities, and now it's time to shift.
All right. David, appreciate your call. We're going to get to Chris in just a moment. Mayor Coyne, I want to put to you some of the concerns that David has there around, and we've heard it from the leaders, getting more resources to market, whether it be pipelines or other ways. What about those strategies in the face of concerns about the environment?
No, definitely. I don't disagree with that. I also think, though, we need to start looking after ourselves. British Columbia is a perfect example of that. When we look at creating a national east, west, north clean electric grid, where does British Columbia get a large portion of its electricity from? The United States. Mm-hmm. We are right now facing an uncertainty in that electric grid. And instead, we're going to be looking at where to get our electricity. We don't have a grid to be able to help ourselves. We don't have a grid that helps the north. So these are major initiatives, but they're also major strategic importance to the community or to the country.
Let's go to Chris in Victoria. Chris, what are your climate and environment priorities this election, if they're included in there?
Yeah, my priority is definitely to look for a party that has this as a main focus as part of their platform. It's incredibly disappointing for me to hear that this has kind of been put on the back burner by all the major political parties. I have heard a little bit out of the Liberals, and so I'm definitely leaning towards them based on their climate policy. But, we are way behind the 8 ball, in my opinion, on starting to move towards green renewable energies in this country and across the whole world. And I'm seeing a huge trend, across all parts of the world to take away this focus. And I would really like to see someone in politics in Canada step up and make this a major focus of their policies so we can start being a world leader in this area.
Chris, I have to ask, I can hear Green Party supporters screaming through the radio and perhaps online that they are the ones that are doing this. Would you vote Green?
Yeah, I actually talked about this on this program in the past. I do normally vote Green, and I do really support the Greens' policies. It's just really problematic and troublesome for me that the Green Party is such a, they're so far back as far as even being, considered a reasonable piece of the government. And I'm so against the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre getting in that I'm changing my normal Green vote to a Liberal vote, with the idea that, hopefully that'll help stay off the Conservatives, because I think that they're going to go in the exact opposite direction of what we need to go with regards to climate solutions.
All right, Chris, thanks for the call. David Miller, I'll put that to you. Strategic voting. We've heard this time and time again from callers and listeners and viewers around how some of them are really leaning into that idea, particularly when the number one focus for them is paying their mortgage, paying their bills, worried about their jobs.
Well, Dan, my view always has been people should vote their conscience. And it's certainly clear so far, just in casual conversations, let alone the polls, that Mark Carney has touched a nerve with people. Perhaps his responsibility, perhaps his background, perhaps his fact that he has a sense of humor and doesn't really talk like a stereotypical politician, talks like your neighbor. And he does, have a background that lends some credence to climate planning. But I think if you look at the bigger picture, Canadian communities are really starting to suffer the impacts of climate change. We have to do what's right. And in doing so, we can really build our economy. And there are ways to pay for it. The fossil fuel companies, big oil companies, big international ones, got incredibly rich during COVID. They made billions and billions and billions. Yet we still subsidize them. The most recent estimate I've seen is $75 billion in subsidies from the Canadian government to the fossil fuel industry over the last 5 years, to those big oil companies. If you repurpose that money to build an east-west, north clean energy grid, if you repurpose it to help clean energy, we've got massive reserves of solar, geothermal, wind, and perhaps even tidal in some parts of the country. And if you start thinking about things like building a clean transportation network across the country, building 2 million affordable, resilient homes, you can start to build an economy that creates jobs, that is an answer to the U.S. tariffs, and uses available money to do it. And, I certainly hope whoever wins the government, that those are the plans that they start to institute, so we can do our part in Canada to address this challenge.
John is joining us from Grand Forks. John, is climate change and the environment on your mind?
It is. It's a number one thing on my mind for any new government coming into power. Mm-hmm. It is the most crucial thing we should be thinking about. I agree with your previous caller wholeheartedly, 100%. And I'd like to mention that there's a thing that people are not seeing and they're not hearing enough about, and it's called cryo-energy storage. This is a technology that allows renewable energy to keep running through the night when there's no sun and when there's no wind.
Okay. John, appreciate the call. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one more very important thing. Mm-hmm. To build these cryogenic systems, and they're grid scale and they're scalable, you use the same supply chain. You use the same skilled workers that are in oil and gas right now. So transitioning to this doesn't require loss of jobs. It's just people moving from oil and gas into cryogenic energy storage builds. And we could build a renewable energy system from coast to coast using solar, wind, cryoenergy, tidal, and all these other forms of renewable energy. But the cryogenic energy storage allows it to keep running overnight.
All right. John, appreciate your call. Spencer Coyne, Mayor of Princeton, I want to put that to you. That has been one of some of the other concerns we've heard around transitioning workers who may be in an industry that if some may call it sunsetting, but they still have to pay their bills as well, and they're worried about what may be next. What about that transition? That has to be a concern.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a resource community. Don't get me wrong.
Yes,
right?
indeed.
I've got mines, mills. I got a coal mine as well. Mm-hmm. But these are things that we have to start talking about. I mean, we have to start looking at alternative ways to do things. But I mean, these climate events are causing us jobs as well. We're losing people from our communities. We're losing houses. We're losing jobs because some of them don't return. So it's not just a matter of one or the other. We have to do this in conjunction. We have to transition, and we can do that. We've seen it in other places. We've seen where workers left one industry and moved into another. The caller just made a good point. I'm going to look into that tonight because it's a new thing for me. But there's jobs out there, and we can take those jobs and transition people into them. I mean, coal was on the way out, and now it's on the rise, and we have to find a way to, deal with that. And I don't know, like this is a big issue, and we can't just say we can't put all our eggs in one basket, and that's what we've been doing. And it's going to harm us. It's harming us right now with the tariffs and the trade disagreements that we're seeing.
All right. Let's go to Yvonne in Victoria. Thanks for calling, Yvonne. Will climate change and the environment influence your vote?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I would like just to say that when Europe was building this fast train like in Asia, because in Japan there is a special train that runs with magnet, and these trains can be electric and very fast. I just would like to say that we were still thinking about making roads for cars, and we didn't do it, and we could have done it. And we wouldn't be in that situation right now. But what I want to know, I know that in the East, they want to build a fast train, but it's only from Quebec City to Toronto. But what about us here in BC? We could build the order from Vancouver to Toronto. And it's very urgent. These special track and trains gonna take a long time. So if they do it in the East, I think we can do it in the West, and we can meet in Toronto.
All right. Yvonne, merci beaucoup for your call. I appreciate that. David Miller, I want to put that to you. You have a lot of trains in the city that you used to run in Toronto. They're talking about almost $4 billion for this, at least initial investment between Quebec City and Toronto. Trying to get that high-speed rail from Toronto to Vancouver, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars.
Huge investment. But, I was lucky enough then that my wife and I took the train from Toronto to Vancouver last year. And if you think about the importance to nation building of the original railways from the east to the west, it's incredible. And what's happened since the free trade and NAFTA were signed in 89 and 94 is that we've thought about nation building as linking up with the U.S. economically. We need these east-west corridors, and parts of Canada perhaps would need to be served by electric buses. But if we did it 125 years ago, virtually by hand, we can do it today. Why should we limit ourselves? And in all of these electrified transport industries, there's huge job possibilities. The CAMI plant in Ingersoll shut down today. My understanding, it produces electric vans there. What would happen if the federal government said to Canada Post and all the big national fleets and companies like Amazon, if you're going to operate in Canada, you need to use electric vans? We'd see plants like that hiring people, not shutting down. And if you add it together, yes, rail is a big investment, but we did it once and we built a unified Canada. Why can't we do it again?
Let's go to Brian in Richmond. Brian, will climate change and the environment influence your vote?
Definitely.
Yeah. Why is that?
Dan, I'm wondering if we can get an agreement on something here, and that being, can we agree that the crux of the matter is how photons interact with CO2 molecules in the atmosphere?
So you're just you're talking about the man-made or human-made emissions contributing to climate change?
No, I'm talking about how photons interact and exchange energy with CO2 molecules in the atmosphere. I think that's sort of the crux of the matter. Can we agree on that?
You know what, Brian? It's a little above my head when I did not do so well in science. May I ask you quickly? Do you have a party that you're leaning to?
I will be leaning towards any party that actually displays some understanding of how photons interact with CO2 molecules. I'm wondering if anyone who's called in or who is
All right,
on this
Brian,
call
we're
right
going to
now
jump.
actually
Sorry, Brian.
understands
Brian,
that.
I apologize. A good science discussion, perhaps for another day. We're just up against the clock. Before we go, Spencer Coyne, we've got the high-speed rail network, and among other things. If there's something you want Canadians to take away from this letter, what is it underlined?
They said we got to act, and I think the federal government's the one who has been kind of dropping. In my opinion, the federal government's been the one that's kind of been dropping the ball on all this. I mean, British Columbia, we've been at the forefront of this for the last 6-7 years, and we don't see a lot of response from them. So, the National Resiliency and Response Recovery Strategy. I mean, Abbotsford, Merritt, Princeton, Lillooet, we're still trying to recover. And there's no
Spencer Coyne, I apologize. We have to end it there. David Miller, Spencer Coyne, thank you so much for joining us on an important issue. Thank you very much for the two leaders there, and apologies we weren't able to get to all of the calls there. We want to get to some streeters now. Talking about. Let me just have a look here. There we are. We have some. Apologies for this. Rolling Friday. You may have seen some posters that popped up in Vancouver this week that appear to be an apology from our American neighbors. It reads, "Dear Canada, we are so very, very sorry. Your American friends." The early editions, Emma Jean asked people around. Apology accepted.
First time I saw one was just yesterday, and it immediately made me wonder who's putting those up. And I just thought it was really sweet because what's coming out of the States is really hard right now.
I think it's understandable considering what's been going on. I know a lot of Americans don't stand by that.
Great. Obviously, the Americans are thinking like we are.
Do you accept this apology then? I mean, from whoever put that up, yes. I don't think they speak for everyone, and the government still sticky situation, but it's a sweet poster.
I can't accept an apology from someone I don't know. So no.
It's not really a matter of apologizing. It's about sort of trade policy, and I feel like people are treating it like an interpersonal dispute.
I think from those people that it probably comes from, absolutely. They can't control what happens in their government as we can't control everything that happens in ours.
It's not their fault, but at the same time, it's the fault of elected officials in that country, and that it has hampered relations between us.
I accept their apology. It's not actually the people who feel like that are doing the damage.
This is BC Today on CBC. We're on Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on our website, cbc.ca/BC, as well as on YouTube, on our channel there, and on the CBC News app. Coming up, he's back, and some of you have already started emailing. Master Gardener Brian Minter will be here to answer your green and growing questions, so call in and email now. That's after this news update with Susan McNamee.
Good afternoon. In the news, Mounties in Squamish say a man has been charged almost a year after the hit and run of a pedestrian who was pushing an infant in a stroller through a crosswalk. They say the crash happened on April 22nd last year at the intersection of 2nd Avenue and Pemberton Avenue. Police say the driver failed to remain at the scene but was arrested a few blocks away. They say he is now facing 2 counts of impaired driving causing bodily harm, failing to stop causing bodily harm, and dangerous driving. The emergency department at the Lillooet Hospital was shut down last night and will be closed until 8 tomorrow morning. Interior Health announced the staffing-related closure late yesterday afternoon. Anyone needing emergency care in the Lillooet area is asked to travel to Royal Inland Hospital in Kamloops or call 911. This is the 13th ER closure at the Lillooet Hospital, with many of them multi-day since the start of the year. Victoria Police have chosen the department's next chief constable. Vancouver Police Deputy Chief Constable Fiona Wilson is set to begin at her new post on August 15th with a 2-week transition alongside current Victoria Police Chief Dale Manac. Wilson has more than 26 years of policing experience overseeing a number of operations ranging from special enforcement and organized crime to major crimes. And Manac is set to retire on August 31st. Let's take a brief look at the BC weather. On the south coast, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 10, clearing tomorrow morning with a high of 11. For the Kootenay region, mainly sunny. Saturday, cloudy with showers beginning in the morning, a high of 11. For the central interior, mainly cloudy and windy with a high of 9. For the southern interior, it's a sunny day, a high of 15. And up in the Peace, a mix of sun and cloud, very windy, with gusts between 60 to 80 kilometers per hour and a high of 10. I'll be back at 1 with all the latest national, international, and local news and weather as well. But right now it's back to BC Today with Dan Burritt.
Susan McNamee, nice to see you. We're both doing the one-day only appearance, eh?
Yes, it's nice to pop in and out as we are needed.
Yes, yes, indeed. These days it seems that we got people away on vacation and other things, so it's always nice to mix it up a little. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Dan. Take care.
And thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on the CBC News app, cbc.ca, and the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. It is Friday, and our afternoon shows are working hard to wrap up the week to keep you up to date on all the day's top stories and throw in some entertainment for you as well. In Metro Vancouver, on the coast, we'll hear about school funding that we could say is paper thin. Gloria, explain.
It's Gloria Makarenko here, and I hope you can join me for On the Coast this afternoon. We're going to get reaction from the Surrey School Board to concerns about underfunding that led to a shortage of paper at least 2 elementary schools. So we'll hear more about just what the school board is doing to alleviate problems like that. Also, Billy Baldwin and China Phillips are going to be in town this weekend for a celebrity pickleball tournament, and it's for a good cause, melanoma prevention. So they are going to join me here in studio to tell us more about it. I hope you can join us between 3 and 6 for On the Coast.
Gloria gets all the big interviews. Thanks, Gloria Makarenko. Pickleball with the stars. That could be fun. You can hear On the Coast on CBC Radio 1 in Metro Vancouver and anywhere you be on the CBC News app. As we roll deeper into spring, some parts of BC are starting to get a bit more sun, warm up a little bit. That may have many green thumbs itching to start planting. So we want to get you set up for success, though, before you dive in with Master Gardener Brian Minter. He's here with his sage advice and to take your questions from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Give us a call now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 is our number in Metro Vancouver, pound 690 on your cell phone, or email us, and some of you already have, bctoday@cbc.ca. Brian, good to see you. Spring is here. Some people may have started planting or at least thinking about it. You have some help for perhaps if people are starting on a patio?
Oh, you bet. You know, Dan, the funny thing is that restaurants, we help restaurants do some of their planters out. They were phoning at a panic last week. Oh my gosh, people are sitting out in the patios. We need some color. Do something, right? and I'm thinking the same thing. You know, when we do get those nice days, it's wonderful to get outside. And so many folks have patios and where they, don't have larger gardens, but it's nice to have something out there. And the one thing that we're missing most of all, Dan, is fragrance. And there's a few plants that are absolutely outstanding. It's nice to have colors, nice to have a bit of screening on our patio, nice to look and be amongst plants and trees and shrubs and green. But the perfume is the big one. Number one plant, certainly in most of British Columbia, is a new Daphne out a few years now called Daphne Eternal Fragrance. Dan, oh my gosh, this is an evergreen plant, hardy zone 5, which means all the Okanagan and so on. But it will start flowering usually in the lower mainland sometime in March, April, and it continues on until November. This is the most beautiful, incredible perfume that anytime you walk out in your garden or your patio, it's just nice to be able to enjoy that. The other thing that's viburnums are big right now, and there's a lot of them coming into flower. The viburnum Burke Woodeye is an incredible one and big punch of fragrance over a long period of time, which is great. And people love lilacs, but the trouble is with lilacs, they don't bloom really until Mother's Day, May, or that period, and then that's it. Not enough. The bloom folks, actually there's two. The Flower Fiesta new lilacs and what is called the Bloomerang lilacs that came from Privet Winters. And Dan, they bloom beautifully in May for a long period of time, disease-free, colorful, looks great. And then about the middle part of summer, latter part of summer in that range, they start blooming all over again. And so that fragrance is incredible. There is osmanthus out there. So many of the spring bulbs have a lovely perfume. A lot of plants we never even think of having fragrance. But the big thing is, if you're looking at something to put in your patio to have a color out there, let's get the perfume as well. And I think that's very, very important. It really is. So thinking, and of course, the other bonus is we have a lot of hummingbirds and we have a lot of pollinators. They're going to be out there too, enjoying that perfume plants as well. So bonus plants, they really are.
No kidding. We get the flora and the fauna. Let's go to the calls. Yep. Leanne in beautiful Cranbrook. Leanne, you're on with Brian. Go ahead.
Hi, Brian. I have a extremely steep, a very large east-facing slope. I don't really know what to do with it. It's so big and so steep, I would spend a small fortune putting plants into it, and I think I would just erode it trying to plant into it. So I thought about doing wildflowers. I just don't know what to do. I'm trying to control the weeds in the meantime is my only concern with wildflowers. I don't know if I should do that or just plant into it with full-grown plants and just bite the bullet.
Yeah, Leanne, good point. Now, tell me, how big is this area approximately? Just rough size.
Oh, goodness, like anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 square feet. It's huge.
Okay. Yeah, it is huge situation. Sometimes you need to break it up a wee bit because it just becomes too big and too massive. And, I don't want to be all the time, spend my whole life weeding out there. I would maybe suggest and how big is the slope here? Is it about a 45-degree angle or really a very steep slope?
It's pretty steep. Yeah, I'd say I'm trying to. My high school arithmetic is terrible, but probably like 60 or 70.
Okay, that gives me a sense. Sometimes investing in some 12-foot, which is the commercial size of landscape fabric, simply dropping it over the edge, putting little pins in to hold it in place, will keep the place looking good. The wind won't blow it away. But the point is, it gives you some time without having to weed every day to allow the whole area to get established. Now, it's Cranbrook, so it's really quite cold. But I think if you could start a little bit, you got to start somewhere. And you're right, the wildflowers is going to be a real tough one because especially in the shade, they like to have, a lot more sun and you're going to have slope on it. But my favorite plant is the Japanese spurge or Pachysandra terminalis. Evergreen, really hardy, spreads up by underground roots, holds the bank together. And you can buy them in smaller 4-inch pots and they multiply really, really well. 1,000 square feet, that's not too bad. That's manageable at least, but I would start a bit at a time. But in the meantime, get your fabric over there to cut the weeding down to a manageable amount and start using the Japanese spurge. Very, very hardy in the wintertime. And the fact that it's evergreen. We used it all through our gardens for many, many years and absolutely loved it. So give that a try. I think it'll make a huge difference for you, but it gives you a sense of hope. Look, I've got the little area started, the little beachhead over here, and it'll grow and develop each year. So honestly, that's what I would do.
Leanne, really appreciate your call. We're going to jump to Andrea in Saanich. Andrea, you're on with Brian.
So I have a question about growing fennel. So we have a semi-successful vegetable garden with a few raised beds. And my mom is really keen on us growing fennel this year because she says she can't find any Canadian-grown fennel. So I've committed to this now. So I have this slightly shady bed with some strawberries in it. And I know fennel doesn't get along with many things. So I'm just wondering, can I pop it in there? What's the best sort of spot for it? And any tips on making it work?
Okay, really good question. First of all, fennel is a more tender herb, so wait till it warms up. I would say mid-May before you start putting it in, because you put it in too early, it sits, goes backwards, and you're not going to be happy. And of course, there's various types of fennel. There's the foliage fennel and there's the root fennel, and you want to get the root ones. There's a new one out called Orion. I would love to try this year. It's got a wonderful big root on it, but wait until mid-May and set them out. And if you can get started plants, it's so much easier. But if you haven't, I would start them right now in little seed trays or whatever to get them going and established. They're available in all garden stores right now. There's no problem at all. But wait for that. Get them started soon if you can, and then transplant them out or buy them as transplants. And in that bit of a shaded area, they'll be absolutely fine with the strawberries. I don't see any danger. They're an easy plant to grow. Once they get going with that beautiful foliage, that fine, really gorgeous foliage on it, they're not a hard time to do. So you can grow your own fennel. Try the one called Orion. Make sure you get the root fennel, and I think easy peasy, easy.
Great. Andrea, thanks so much for the call.
Brian. That's great.
Thank you.
We have an email for you, Brian, from Catherine, who says she has a Japanese, forgive the pronunciation if I don't have this right, Stewartia in a large container on my southeast-facing balcony. 2 lower branches are not leafing out, not even tiny buds, but the rest of the tree is leafing out nicely. Any reasons what's going on? She's wondering if it's a root problem.
Yeah, you know what? Stewartia are beautiful plants. Nice to have that bit of color in midsummer and so on. I love them. But in a container, we didn't have a bad winter this year. The prior winters we were terrible, and I would say, okay, that's an issue. We didn't have a bad one. At this point here, with any branch that doesn't seem to leafing out, I take my fingernail and scrape the bark. If there's green in the bark anywhere on that plant, that little cambium layer, you'll find that it's probably going to come a little bit later. But there's nothing now. It's just brown when you scrape. Then take those branches off. But at the same time, go up and prune the plant back, maybe about a third or a quarter, to try and get some branching to make up for the 2 we lost on the bottom. It'll really help improve the branching a lot in that tree. So no problem at all. Don't forget, all the plants in containers like Stewartias need to be fed as well. And some timed release fertilizer, like a 14-14-14, would be absolutely ideal to put on anytime now. But again, check out, watch for the green, and if not, cut it off and then prune the tree back a wee bit as well to try and get the fullness that we really want from that really beautiful plant.
There you are, Catherine. Let's go over to Wendy in Grand Forks. Wendy, you're on with Brian.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call. I have a bit of the same problem as the woman in Cranbrook. I have a south-facing slope. It's the size of about 1/8 of an acre. And you had mentioned the Japanese spurge. Does the Japanese spurge, does that have flowers? Is there foliage or flowers with that?
Yeah, the only thing, Wendy, it is a shade lover. It'll tolerate sun. If it's in full sun, we had them both in our gardens over there. It'll be a little more yellow in terms of intense green, but yeah, it only grows about 8 to 10 inches high and flowers all summer long. It's really quite beautiful, but it looks pretty. It's attractive, shiny leaves on it. But again, if it gets sun from 11 till 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you might find that would be a little bit tough on it in terms of your area, but other than that, it's good. We also have Cotoneaster varieties that are hardier than usual. The zone 5, you'd be about a zone 5, I think, where you are. They would be able to take that. But I love the Cotoneaster varieties they root into the ground. They have the flowers, they have the berries in wintertime, and they really hold that bank together. That would kind of get my choice. So if it is quite sunny, look at some of the hardier Cotoneaster low-growing varieties.
Thank you very much for the call, Wendy. Appreciate it. Wendy, apologies. We've got to jump over to Patrick in Langley. Patrick, you're on with Brian.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. Really like this show. I've been listening for years. Question on farming. I have a plot of land, 2 acres, peaty soil. The pH is 5.0. I'm trying to raise it to 7 to 7.5. I've got a whole bunch of chicken manure because I've been told it raises the alkalinity. And I've also got my hands on a bunch of biochar. I plan to mix it in a manure spreader. And I'm just wondering, would that be enough, or to go that high, 2 acres?
Yeah, why are we? Yeah, and I guess I'm curious here. It's a really good point you're bringing up, Patrick. But all plants will grow well from a pH of about 5 to about 7.5 or 8. Most plants will go well in that range. What are you hoping to grow here?
I'm actually growing industrial hemp. And no, there's no
okay,
CBD.
yeah, okay,
This is
that
for
makes
rope,
sense.
basically.
Yeah, yeah.
So it needs to be 7 to 7.5 is its ideal pH level. Just hoping to get some guidance from you. It's really hard to get anyone to tell me anything because they're worried they're going to be on the hook. But
yeah, we use sulfates to bring down the pH, but to get it back up, you're right. Your manures, I mean, they are really good. That's why I always worry about folks who are putting trees and shrubs in and put a lot of manures in them. They make it far less acid. So I think your manures are a really good plan, especially poultry. That would pull that off really quite nicely for you. But I didn't realize you need to have that pH that high. That's what I found quite interesting. But anyway, no, you're bang on. Manures worked into the soil will be able to do that quite nicely without spending a lot of money. And on that area, I shouldn't take you too long to be able to see that change, honestly.
Patrick, really appreciate your call. Thanks, Patrick. Apologies. We've got to keep it to one question generally. Let's go to Cody in Trail, who has a question for Brian about fruit trees.
Good afternoon, Dan, and good afternoon, Brian. Love the show. Been listening for a long time, as many people have. And
Thank you,
very
Cody.
very happy early Easter to both you gentlemen.
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
Brian, can you recommend a good fruit tree that would give off shade, like an apple tree or a cherry tree, something that we can grow here in the trail area, like where I live by the river, that would be able to give off enough shade, and how often, and what do you suggest for pruning, like when we have to prune it?
Yeah, a couple of things here. You bring up a very good point. Shade trees can double as basically a fruit tree can double as a shade tree and screening tree. They're wonderful. You live in trail. You don't need to have a super hardy varieties because most of the Okanagan industry has, you're about the same, I guess, winter temperatures in terms of cold. So no problem at all. But the thing, Cody, I want you to is make sure you don't buy a dwarf tree. Probably get a semi-dwarf. Nobody grows standard trees anymore, like the old apple trees from the original seedlings and so on. But a semi-dwarf tree will still get 12, 15 feet, make a nice shade tree, and it'll be great. But because you're in trail, you can grow the super sweet apples. I mean, I love the ambrosias, and there's so many great varieties of apples, and those are the ones that we get. I mean, those are the super sweets that do so well in the Okanagan. We can't grow them as well on the West Coast here, but look at our super sweet. There's a whole series of varieties out there that would be absolutely wonderful in terms of making a really good shade tree for you, but also producing wonderful fruit. And Cody, remember, you need 2 different varieties for cross-pollination, so you need a minimum of 2 trees.
All right. Cody, really appreciate the call, and thanks for the early Easter shout-out.
Yeah,
Randy had a question in Abbotsford, Brian. He was asking about the Daphne plant. Remind us again, what is that?
Oh, yeah, Dan, it was Daphne Eternal Fragrance. And I do really appreciate the fact that this one flowers continuously, basically from March all the way through the summertime. I've never seen anything quite like it. So Daphne, Eternal Fragrance, check fairly quickly because most nurseries sell out of these, pretty fast. It's a superstar. It really is.
All right. We're going to go to another Cody in just a moment. We have another email from from Mohan in Maple Ridge, wondering, Brian, is it too late to prune a west-facing hydrangea?
No, not at all. But here's the most important thing, Dan, that we remember. The round mop head type of hydrangeas, they're called the macrophyllus. Those are the ones that already have the buds set to bloom this year. So hands off. Don't even think about pruning those because the buds are set, ready to come up and do a beautiful performance in, June and July. It's the PG hydrangeas, the more cone-shaped ones that are white that, turn out to blush pink and so on as they go on. They can still be pruned easily because they bloom later on newer wood. So old wood macrophyllus, absolutely not. But the PG varieties, yes. Lots of time to prune them right now to get them back in shape. And sometimes the harder you prune them, the better flowering you'll have with stronger stems. Absolutely.
Okay. A different Cody is calling us from Cranbrook. You're on with Brian, Cody.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing great. What's your question for Brian?
So, I'll try and keep this quick. So, my family has about 5 acres in just outside of Cranbrook in an area called Wycliffe. And I believe the soil is high in alkalinity, but the property has there's no trees. It's totally open, full sun 24 hours a day. Well, not 24, you know what I mean?
I do, yep.
So what I had a theory, would it be feasible to have people come out and plant a community garden on this property, or would it be too much work? Water is limited, and the soil, is high in alkalinity. Is this would it work, do you think?
Yep. Well, from what I've seen about the soil in and around Cranbrook, it's pretty good soil, honestly. I'm surprised it's so alkaline, but you can very easily change that high alkaline soil by using sulfate fertilizers. That's very easy to drop the pH, and even adding more peat moss and bark mulch into your soils will bring that down to a range where your vegetables will do great. I would say if we were talking in Europe right now, Cody, people are doing this everywhere. It's such an important thing to have a plot to be able to grow your own vegetables. It's happening everywhere through the Lower Mainland. So if you're offering that to folks on a free basis to be able to do that, that would be wonderful. The water is the one issue. You bring up a very good point. So folks may have to do a little pre-planning in terms of bringing their own water, collecting water from their eavesdrops or whatever they want to do and bring it out on the property. But if I don't know what the depth it would take to have a well put in, because that would help everybody, but that's a consideration I would take a look at. But Cody, the idea is wonderful. I'm sure people would very much appreciate it, and it won't be too big of a challenge to change that type of soil into a soil that would be really good for vegetables. No problem at all.
Cody, really appreciate your call. And if you get that off the ground, Cody, please let us know, because it's a great community story. Let's go to Donna in Sorrento. Donna, you're on with Brian.
Hi there, Brian. Thank you for taking my call. I'm just calling.
Donna.
I got last year, I got a new tree. It's a pit fruit, multiple fruits on one tree. And so it's a fairly new young tree. And I'm just wondering what I should be doing in the spring to prep. First of all, if there's any natural sprays I could use to protect it from pests, and fertilizer, if I should be fertilizing it.
Yeah, and very good question, Anna. What I want you to do is please get some composted manures put around that tree right now. I would say around the drip line, it was very important where it's going to go. Now, my one concern about the multi-grafted trees, especially with different varieties, you have to be a referee. Because when you find that happening, some branches have great vigor. They start to take off, taking all the water and food away from the other branches. So the ones that are really vigorous, cut them back, keep them in check to allow the smaller ones to, kind of keep the same depth and thickness of branches. That's really, really important. In terms of food, I always recommend 10, 15, 19. It's a British Columbia made fertilizer from TerraLink. It's a great, 40% organic fertilizer. But other than that, it just build up that soil with manures, put your right fertilizer on, keep the branches pruned so that they're all equal in terms of the size as they grow, and you should have no problem at all. That's an exciting thing. I think it's wonderful.
We appreciate your call. We're going to squeeze in one more. Karen and Armstrong. Karen, if you can be quick, you're on with Brian. Karen and Armstrong, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Brian.
Hi.
I am an apartment dweller in Armstrong, British Columbia. I have a 4-foot by 12-foot balcony, and here's the problem. It faces due west from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 8:30 at night. It is literally blast furnace temperature, no shade. What can I put on that balcony?
Well, two things. Number one, and I don't know what control you have over in terms of doing things, but sometimes dropping a screen. We use in the greenhouse industry shade cloth, a 50% shade cloth. It looks attractive. It's green or black. If it's so very hot where you can't sit out and enjoy it, dropping the screen, putting a frame around it so the wind doesn't blow it around would be absolutely ideal. That shade cloth we use in greenhouses, so it's easier for plants to be able to grow. That would be my first choice. The other thing is, but even putting a really hardy shade tree. If you can get some shorter maples or different types of trees, Amur maple, Manitoba maple, that type of thing, put them in a container so that that tree be a bit of a shade maker for your patio as well. But I think most importantly, think about getting shade cloth. It's not expensive, easy to use. You can use it over and over again, but it'll actually make the patio so much more livable and allow you to grow virtually all the plants you want to be able to grow. So that would be my best tip to be able to help you out there.
Karen, thank you so much for the call. Brian Minter, our master gardening columnist, joining us from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. He will be back in 2 weeks. And folks, remember, it's Daphne Eternal Fragrance. There you go.
Well done, Dan.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
And that is it for our show. And this week, thank you for calling in and emailing and joining the discussion. You can always email us bctoday@cbc.ca.